Okay, it's 6:05, and I think we're ready to begin. So, good evening. Thank you for joining me. Many of you chose not to use your cameras. It's up to you. But if you have a camera and would like to use it, so I'll be able to see you and each other you'll be able to see each other. It's nice, but I know some people don't like to do it, or some people don't have the capability to do it. In any way you choose to be here, you are welcome. What I am planning to do in the next many weeks now is to try to give you a good sense of what the Hebrew Bible is. I have to tell you that I never taught the whole Hebrew Bible, trying to do it in a relatively speaking short time, but I realized that most people I know are not familiar with the Jewish Bible as a complete work. They know here and there are some stories, more from the Torah than the other parts of the Jewish Bible. So my first goal is to give you a good idea of the 24 books of the Hebrew Bible. I keep using the term Hebrew Bible because I learned when I came to this country, I wanted to buy a copy of the Bible, and I asked for a Bible, and when you just say Bible, it's the Christian Bible. So you have to be very specific about it. There is another term that I will not be using, but you heard it, and you may even read articles that use it, and this is the Old Testament. And this is the Old Testament. The reason I do not use it is that for many Jews, the term Old Testament is somewhat offensive, because what it implies is that if you say that there is a New Testament, which means that the old one is worthless. In other words, what some Christians argued back then, less and less today, but that's where it came from, was that Israel had a testament. Israel was the first to have a covenant relationship with God. However, at one point, God decided to break this covenant with Israel and established a new covenant, or a New Testament. Okay? So for Jews, we hear Old Testament, it means that's not something that we are using anymore. So we are not crazy about this term. The term that is getting to be more and more common is either the Jewish Bible, or we can use the word Tanakh, and in a moment I will explain. But again, if you are used to the term Old Testament, if you read about the Old Testament, people don't do it today in order to offend anyone. Tanakh. The word Tanakh is the Hebrew word for the Hebrew Bible, and it's an acronym. It's an acronym for the three parts of the Bible. The first part of our Bible starts with the word T, with the letter Tav, or the sound T, and this is Torah. Okay? Torah, when we just say Torah, we refer to the 5 books of Moses: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. When you come to the synagogue, and hopefully soon more of you will feel safe to come, we open the ark and we take out the Torah. Okay, this is the 5 books of Moses. This is not the entire Jewish Bible, only the first part of it. The Torah is considered to be the most important or the most sacred part, and traditionally it was considered to be the part that was either written by God or at least dictated by God to Moses. Okay, so that's why when we have the Torah in the synagogue, we treat it as the holiest item we have. I'm almost convinced that if, God forbid, there will be a fire or a flood or something, the first thing we're going to do would be to rescue these Torahs. I remember even that the first hurricane or almost hurricane that I witnessed here, I got phone calls from people asking me, what are you doing with the Torahs? We decided not to do anything because Temple Beth is probably the best place or the safest place for the Torahs. We have everything that is needed, but we did go and checked it after the main rain. So this is the first part. The middle part is called Nevi'im, which means prophets, and it is divided into two parts. One part is the history of the Jewish people since they became a nation, a people, roughly at the year of 1000, or it starts even a little bit before 1200 BCE, and it covers almost 1000 years. So these are the books of Samuel 1 and 2 and Kings, and I'm going to share with you and even give you a whole synopsis of the Torah, of the Bible, that you can look at it later. But the other part is really prophets. And when we talk about the prophet, we have the main prophets, which are Ezekiel and Isaiah and Jeremiah, and we have a group of minor prophets. I always thought that it's quite insulting for someone to be named a minor prophet. It's not because they were minor in terms of importance, but their books are very small. So the people who put the Bible together decided to put all these 12 minor prophets together as one book. Okay? So this is the middle part of the Bible, the Nevi'im, the prophets. Part of it is history, and the other one is the prophecies. And I'm using many terms that I will be explaining later on. What are these prophecies? What was the style? Why they were doing what they were doing? But the prophecies of 3 plus 12 prophets. The last part, the third part of the Tanakh, the K, right, the Chaf, is Ktuvim, which literally means writings. And this is a large collection of books that deal with many different things, the miscellanea, if you want. Some of them are beautiful poems. So the book of Psalms is a collection of 150 psalms, 150 poems that have different functions, many of them to praise God, to express gratitude and awe. We have erotic poems. For example, the Song of Songs, we will look at it towards the end, but this is really an erotic song that some of the rabbis who put the Bible together, that canonized, that who decided what to include, what not to include, were not sure about it. As a kid in a yeshiva, and I will refer to it a little bit later, we used to open the Bible and to look at the Song of Songs because we got very excited to see words like breast and some other parts and some other lovemaking things. So for middle school, boys only, we didn't have girls in our school. Okay, that was the excitement, the biggest excitement we could get is some dirty words in the Bible. Some of the books there, like the book of Ecclesiastes, are read like existential works of the 20th century, like Sartre and others. Everything is futile, right? There is nothing new under the sun. What you know from it is what became the famous song, for everything there is a season, right? Turn, time to be born, time to die. This is part of it. It was not written to be a popular song in the 1960s, but it really describes existential struggles of the authors. We have the book of Job that deals with the same thing. Another part of this Ktuvim, this third part of the Tanakh, of the Jewish Bible, are the 5 scrolls, okay? We're familiar with the scroll of Esther, right? Megillat Esther, the book that we read on Purim, but there are 4 more, okay, that we read on different holidays. The Bible, I think I said, was written throughout a long span of time. We have texts there from around 1000 BCE till something around 200 BCE, right? It's a span of some 800 years. Now, I use the terminology BCE and CE. BCE, before the Common Era, okay? And CE is just the Common Era. Okay, so before 0, it's BCE, and after is CE. Some people used to, and they use it less and less, that after the Common Era, meaning after 0 is AD, and before is CE. But BCE, before the Common Era. So this is quite a large span of time. Who wrote the Bible? Many, many, many different people. Okay, not only because it was written throughout this very long period, but a lot of what we have today in the Bible started as an oral tradition that was written down by people in different places, and then were edited and edited again and redacted again. Okay, until at one point in the 1st century, the rabbis, and it was mainly because they knew that they were going to be in exile, decided to take all the materials they had, all the books, and compile it together into one book and called it the Bible. The fancy word is that canonize these books. They made them sacred, they made them important. Okay, there were many other books that the Jewish community had during the 1st century, which the rabbis who put the Bible together, who canonized the Bible, decided not to include because we can say they were not important enough, or we can say that sometimes for political reasons, they did not want to include these works. So for example, the book of Maccabees, the main source that discusses the story of Hanukkah, the rabbis who did not like the Hasmoneans, the Maccabees, for reasons that are not for now, decided to exclude it. The Catholic Church includes many of these books that are called Apocrypha. They decided to include many of these books in their Bible. And I mentioned it some few months ago that when I needed to read the book of Maccabees in English, I purchased the Catholic Bible because it was there. Okay, that was before everything was readily available online. Okay. When I grew up in yeshiva, we were told that the Torah, at least, was written by God. And if somebody argues the opposite, this is heresy. Okay? And we went along with it. More than that, we did not study, and we studied a lot of Bible daily. We spent hours a day studying Bible, not as much as Talmud, because Talmud was the main thing that we studied, but we studied enough of the Bible. All the commentaries were from the Middle Ages. When I came to this country, I was fortunate enough to study the Bible again, this time in a different setting in the graduate school at New York University. And I was exposed to something new, something exciting, something that I didn't even know was possible. Because what happened in the last 150 years was a huge revolution in the studying of the Bible. And that's an aspect that I'm going to share with you. Because of archaeological excavations, we were introduced to a huge amount of knowledge, of artifacts, of knowing new cultures, new languages that we couldn't decipher before, from the same geographic place and times of the Bible. Just think about it. For example, think about the Civil War. So for all these years, all we had about the Civil War was the account of Lincoln and the official generals there, right? And that's all we knew about the Civil War. And then one day, somebody would discover many more accounts of the same period. Writings from England and French, writings about it from generals of the South and regular people from the South, right? All of a sudden, you discover so many dimensions about the Civil War that you didn't know before. And that is what happening to now, right now, and it's getting more and more exciting with regard to the study of Bible. We get new treasures all the time, most of them in form of new tablets, okay? Just pieces of stone on which we have text. We have the means today to read all these ancient languages, and we are able to compare the life of the ancient Israelites to the life of many other ancient Near Eastern cultures from that time. It's not only that we are able to learn about the other cultures, about the Samaritans and the Hittites and the Phoenicians, etc., but we learn so much about our own Bible. Okay, for example, there were words that we didn't really know before. They appear in the Bible only once. So if a word appears only once, it's really hard to know its meaning. But then now we know Akkadian. We know many other ancient languages. And oh, we know the meaning in Akkadian, and it sounds exactly like the Hebrew word that we didn't know before. More than that, since the middle of the 20th century, in the 1940s, we discovered another tremendous treasure. And I taught a class about it, and I refer to the Dead Sea Scrolls. In the Judean desert, two Bedouin boys threw a stone. They heard a sound. They knew that they shattered some clay vessel. They went, retrieved it, and found some ancient parchments of texts. I won't tell the whole story because I have before. In any case, they found hundreds of clay vessels filled with fragments of texts from the 4th to the 2nd century BCE. Okay, we're talking about 200 years before the Common Era. Now, to put it in perspective, before the Dead Sea Scrolls were found, the oldest manuscript of the Bible we had was from the 9th century, right? Not so old, like 1100 years ago. All of a sudden, we found scrolls or fragments of scrolls. Not all the books were found in their entirety, but we found these versions of the text that were more than 1,000 years older than the oldest copy we had. The amazing thing is that the differences were not huge, but sometimes they were significant. And sometimes even there were some places in the Bible, even in the Torah, that we always felt like something was missing. And then we opened the Dead Sea Scrolls and we found the text that we thought disappeared. Okay, so we have so much more to work with right now, which made the study of the Bible much more exciting. I will pause here for a few moments, should anyone has some questions. So if you do, please unmute yourselves. Okay. I will take it as no, and I will continue. Oh, I get some. From time to time, I'm not smart enough to be able to speak and to read the comments in the chat box. I'm not a good multitasker. So from time to time, I will pause and I will read. And if there's something that I need to respond to, I will. When we think about the Bible, when we think about ancient Israel, we realize that there is something quite spectacular, and I'm not saying it because I'm a rabbi, and I'm not saying it because most of you are Jewish and want to feel good about being Jewish. But when you look at all the other cultures, all the other peoples, the nations who existed at that time, many of them have been huge empires, they disappeared. Or if you think about Egypt, Egypt today has nothing to do with ancient Egypt, right? Egyptians who go to school don't read hieroglyphs, for example, right? The modern Egypt has really nothing to do with ancient Egypt. The only exception are the people of Israel. I will use the term Jewish, even though it's not the most accurate way, at least up to a point, and I'll explain in a second why. But when it comes to our people, there is a continuation since these biblical times until today. This book of the Bible that was written 3,000 years ago is still the Bible that we read, that people read in the same language in Israel and in the diaspora by those who read Hebrew. Now, Israel was not a big, important state. If anything, just the opposite. It was tiny, it's still very tiny. It has, in the Bible, sometimes we read that it was strong at some points and was able even to oppress some of the small nations and to force them to pay taxes, maybe. But the big difference was that Israel, who didn't have any material or physical presence, had an idea. And the idea that we see in the Bible started not only Judaism, but later on Christianity and Islam. And this idea was a major revolution. And this idea that I refer to is the idea of monotheism. So what kept the Jewish people, and again, through the Jewish people, the Christians and the Muslim, or what created the whole thing that is still very significant today, is an idea. Before the Bible was written, there was a different concept of God, okay, polytheism. People believed that there were many gods. People believed that the gods have a lot to do with nature. So the god of the wind creates the wind, and you pray for God of rain when you need rain. And when you want babies, you pray for gods and goddesses of fertility, etc. And then comes along the Bible and says, no, there is one God. And this God is not embedded in or is not controlled by nature. This is the God who created everything. And this is a God who is outside of nature, transcendent of nature. We'll explore more about it later on. But before I continue with that, I want to tell you, and that's something that I was not allowed to say when I studied, when I was younger, but it's important for you to know. It's not that one day all the people of Israel decided that we do not believe in many gods and all of us believe only in one God, and that's it. Because when you live among nations who believe in many gods, most people still believed in many gods. Only a small group initially among the people of Israel, probably the elite, they started to develop the monotheistic idea and try to force it on the entire people of Israel, okay? But that took them very long time, and it was a process. In other words, throughout hundreds of years of the history of ancient Israel, the people of Israel believed in many gods. Now, they believed in our God, Adonai, or the way it's normally appeared in the Bible, it's the 4 letters, right? Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey. And if you can envision Temple Betham, these are the 4 letters that we have above the ark. Probably the name of that God was pronounced as Yahweh, but we don't know exactly because we don't have recordings from 1200 BCE. But most scholars refer to that God as Yahweh. But the belief was not that Yahweh is the only God, but rather that Yahweh is our God and therefore is the best God, and we should be loyal to Yahweh, right? Because Yahweh has special connection with Israel. But it took hundreds of years before Yahweh became the only God, and every other God was considered to be false. Is that point clear? Because it's really, really important. I'll just give you one small example. On Friday nights, almost most Friday nights, but it's not only, we sing the prayer Mi Chamocha, right? Mi Chamocha, many different melodies. And the words of Mi Chamocha in English are, who is like you among the gods, O Yahweh? Which implies that there are many gods, right? When they describe the Exodus from Egypt, there were many gods, including the gods in Egypt and others, only that our God, Yahweh, is the best, okay? And we'll see it more when we talk about the beginning of Genesis, because God says, for example, at one point, seems like he's talking to other gods who are sort of subservient gods. He said, let us make men. Let us create people, okay? Now, what happened was that the last redactors, the last editors of the Bible tried to eliminate all these references to belief in many God, but they did not clean it up completely. So we have many Psalms and we have many narratives, and again, we will see them very in the next weeks. The fact that, yes, we never argue that there aren't other gods, but we just like our God better. We have special relationship with this God. I don't know if you follow sports, but probably you believe that your team is your team. I'm not sure if it's the best or not, but you have this special connection with it, but you do not deny the existence of other teams. You just don't like them and you want them to lose and you want to praise your team as the best ever. But so that was the culture most of the time, okay? But again, later on, it emerged to be what we understand today as pure monotheism. And this idea changed the world, and not only for the best, by the way. Because one of the problems with monotheism means that there is only one God. And if you don't believe in that God, you are wrong, right? When there are multi-gods, okay, you have your God, I have my God. Let's agree to disagree. When there's only one God, and if I have the power and I force you to believe in my God and you don't want to believe in my God, I'm willing to kill you for that. Okay, so when we think about tolerance, when we think about pluralism, monotheism is not necessarily the way to go, but it has many other advantages, as we will see later. Few words about ancient Israel. So Israel started to form as a nation around 1200 BCE, like 3,200 years ago. Okay, we like to think about the Exodus, but we'll dedicate enough to the Exodus. But let's say that the Exodus or something like the Exodus was a historical event. The people, or at least a group of people who escaped Egypt, became the people of Israel, or joined other people, and together they all became the people of Israel. So that's 1200 BCE, and for about 200 years, they were not yet a kingdom. They were sort of a loose confederacy of tribes. But at the year of 1000 BCE, which is an important year to remember, an easy one to remember, we had the first Israelite kingdom. The first king was not King David, it was King Saul, but the first king who was able to get all the tribes together was King David. Several years ago, Jerusalem celebrated 3,000 years. I don't know if you remember, it was 3 years ago or something like that, because when King David became the king, he established Jerusalem as the capital of the people of Israel. However, it did not last very long, because after the death of David, his son Solomon became the king. But after Solomon, around 930 or so, this kingdom of Israel split into two kingdoms. One was in the north that confusingly called themselves Israel, and the other one was in the south that was called Judah. Okay, we are Jews because we are descendants of Judah. What happened to Israel? This is the story of the 10 lost tribes. Okay, at the year of 922, the Assyrians conquered them, exiled many of them, and the 10 tribes disappeared. Many just went to different parts of the world. Many of them who were able escaped down to their neighbors, to Judea, okay? And that's an important fact to remember. But since 922 BCE, there is no longer Israel, okay? No more 10 tribes. We don't know where they are. They probably ended up just like all the other nations. They assimilated, they intermarriage, assimilation, and they adopted the traditions and the gods of their conquerors and disappeared. So after 922, we have only a small group that was left, the descendants of Judah. But at the year of 586, the Babylonians conquered Judea and exiled the people, not all of them, but a big part. Normally, they exiled the wealthy people, the leaders, because without the leaders, it's hard for the community to rebel. And that was really the end for a very long time. The only little exception is the story of Hanukkah, but really until 1948, with the establishment of modern Israel, we didn't have a state and a real nation of the Jewish people. Okay, so this is more or less the framework of what the Bible will be covering. Let me pause should you have any questions. No questions. Okay. What I want to do now is something quite unexpected, but I think it will be an interesting exercise for all of us. Instead of reading from the Bible, from the beginning of the Torah, I want us to read a part from a book that was written about 1,000 years before the Torah, the Epic of Gilgamesh, from the Emuna Elish, because what I'm going to do today and what I'm going to continue with next week is to show you the interaction between the Bible and other sources from the ancient Near East. Because when we learn about these differences, we learn so much about what was important to the people of Israel and how we built our identity based on the differences. So let me just share this screen now. On the chat box, check your chat box. Do you see two documents there?
No.
You don't see two documents in the chat box?
Wait, let me see. I have to click on the chat box.
No, nothing.
Nothing.
No, empty.
Empty, okay.
Oh, did I lose him?
Where is the checkbox?
No, I have it, unfortunately. I see it, but
No, what happened?
If you click on more, then you'll see the
Go
chat.
back there and see what happens.
Chat box is at the bottom where it's participants chat script.
and
There's nothing there.
Load now.
there's nothing there. Okay.
I have that lunch meeting. Hold on.
Let me try it again.
Yeah, from Jackie to everyone, nothing there.
Well, you found it.
Okay. Let's see if
Let me see file.
Here you go.
Oh, yeah. it's there.
Oh, wait a minute.
do you
Here.
have it? Emuna Elish?
Yes.
Good. So I'm going to do the same with another file. I guess what I see on my computer is not necessarily what you see in yours.
What is this thing file?
The Epic opens, is that what it is?
No.
Yes.
Okay. But now I want to open another screen.
I can't still see anything.
Oh,
And
it's
I don't see anything either.
There's
here.
two,
Okay.
two
Synopsis of the contents. Yes, the second one alone.
So you don't see?
Yes,
No, I don't have it.
I
Looks
do.
like- Looks like some people see and some people don't.
Yeah,
The second one is a synopsis
Of
of
the
the
contents.
contents of something.
That's enough. Yes.
Yeah.
Mine just says nothing there.
Oh,
I
I
see.
don't see anything, but I'm on my phone. So I think that if you're on your phone, you might not be able to see.
Oh, maybe.
No, I'm on an iPad and I don't see anything.
Yeah.
Okay.
oh, I'm on a computer and I can see it. Oh, I like your
Yeah.
glasses, golly.
Oh, thank you.
That's
Because I
really-
can't see anything.
You know what? Let me try to share documents. We'll fix it. It's not so important for now.
Oh,
Oh, I see it now.
there it is.
Yes.
Dropbox, the Mona Elish.
Now, do you see now the text that I share?
There are a lot of them are on their phone.
Phone.
No, I don't.
No, we just see a Dropbox screen.
That's all you see.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't see anything. I
Now
still
I have
see
a whole, we have a whole
nothing.
list under the Dropbox.
No, no. now I shared my screen. You don't see my screen?
Yes, we do.
You can see it, yeah. I've got the documents, but I'm on a computer too, but I see your screen.
You see my screen that says Emuna Elish?
Yes.
Yeah, but it's
No.
not, all it is highlighted. We don't see the actual file. We just see a list.
No, we don't see the file.
No, but do you see a document right now?
Yeah.
I will take care of the files later on. It's not, but I want us to look at for now at least, let's share the document. Okay, so we'll be able to read a little bit the document. And so you can all see here, right?
Yes.
What I have
No.
in front of me. So don't worry about the chat box and the actual file. What we have here is the story of creation, and from about 2000 BCE, which is about 1,000 years older than the oldest stories that we have in our Bible. And this tells us how the world was created according to this beautiful saga of Emuna Elish. Before the world was created, as you can see, nothing existed except water, and water existed in two forms. There is primeval fresh water, okay, and there was primeval ocean water. One side of them was associated with the divine principle male that was named Apsu, and the salt water with the divine female who was named Tiamat. Now we're going to read a little bit from it. Can you see it?
No.
Mhm. Yes.
No.
No.
Just the title.
Just the title?
Wait, do I have to click on it?
Can
we
you see now?
It works from in the chat. It's not working from your Dropbox.
Okay, it's not working for me in either place.
No.
Well, in the chat, did you click on, hi, Aunt Carol, it's Joyce.
Hi, hi, Joyce.
Did you click on the word on the document and a blue check comes up or a blue arrow?
No, there's
You don't
nothing
see
that
a
says
document right
document.
now.
No.
You don't see a document.
No.
No.
Oh, wait a
Okay,
minute.
that's not good.
No.
No.
Back to you, but in the chat, I still see it.
You see it in the chat, but you don't see it when I share a screen.
No, just your listing on Dropbox.
Yeah, just the
All your
title.
files, and then I couldn't open up your Dropbox file.
No, neither could we.
Okay, because so let's see if I open this.
You could probably do a copy and paste, opening up from your Dropbox.
I know, but I see it very clearly on my screen. Everything is perfect, and I see, and it looks like always, but I don't know what the problem is.
You see it open. I get it. You see it open, but we
I
don't.
see it open. I see everything. I see all the files, and I just don't see.
Link copied, paste this link in your browser to preview.
And even now, nothing, right?
Oh,
Now I have.
I have it. We have
I
it.
have it.
Not all of you?
I see it. I see
I
it.
have it now.
Yeah, I see it now.
Enuma Elish.
Enuma Elish.
Get rid of that.
Now
touch.
you have it. Now it works.
Do you all have it? Please nod or
Yeah.
yes.
Yes.
Okay, I just turned it off and started it again, and it works. Okay, because this is going to be quite interesting, I hope, because it's not a story that you read every day. So this is the story of creation, as I said, from about 2,000 years ago. Before there was a world and before there were even gods, okay? So there were two sources of water. The idea here, as in all other stories, creation stories, as even before there were gods, there was some primeval realm. There was something. In this case, two sources of water, fresh water and salt water. one of them was associated with a divine principle by the name of Apsu, and the other was with the female divine principle by the name of Tiamat. And let's read a little bit of that, because next week we will compare it to the biblical story of creation and hopefully learn a lot from it. So that's how it starts. When on high, the heaven had not been named, firm ground below had not been called by name, not by primordial Apsu, their begetter, and Mumu Tiamat, she who bore them all, the waters commingling as single body. So these two divine principles, Apsu and Tiamat, right, they commingled. They had some sort of sexual intercourse. No reed hut had been matted, no marshland had appeared. When no gods, whatever had been brought into being, uncalled by name, their destined, undermined, then it was the gods were formed within them. So before there were gods, there were these entities, right? Apsu and Tiamat, they had some intercourse. And as a result of this intercourse, the gods were born. When you read the whole thing, you see that even before the gods, there were some demons who were born. Okay? Remember how the Bible begins?
In the beginning.
In the beginning, there was God. God was there. There was nothing before God. Okay? But here, there was something before God, and that something, primordial realm, somehow created the gods. The sexual union of Apsu and Tiamat, that begins the process that first had demons and monsters, and eventually gods will begin to emerge. There was one problem. Now in time, Tiamat and Apsu are disturbed by the din and the noise of the younger gods. What are they going to do? The divine brothers band together. They disturb Tiamat as they surge back and forth. Yeah, they trouble the mood of Tiamat by their hilarity in the abode of heaven. Apsu, opening his mouth, said unto resplendent Tiamat, their ways are verily loathsome unto me. By day I find no relief, no response by night. I will destroy, I will wreck their ways, that quiet may be restored. Let us have rest. What was the problem of Tiamat and Apsu with the gods that they have created? They made a lot of noise.
Right.
They didn't
Yes,
like them.
a lot of noise.
They decided to get rid of the gods that their union produced. Then answered Mumu Tiamat, giving counsel to Apsu. Ill-wishing and ungracious was Mumu's advice. Do destroy my father the muteous ways, then shalt thou have relief by day and rest by night. When Apsu heard this, his face grew radiant because of the evil he planned against the gods, his sons. Okay, I know it's hard for us who are familiar with the Bible to envision what was happening there. Okay, all these gods who were disturbing the two major divine entities that were ruling before there were gods. Let me read a little bit more because I at least find it fascinating. I hope that you enjoy it as well. Okay, so I just summarize a little bit because we cannot read the whole thing. So he decided to destroy the gods. He is Apsu, and he's thwarted by an earth water god named Ea. We'll see this god, and Apsu is killed. So as Apsu was about to kill the gods, one of the gods killed him. Tiamat is now angered, and she's bent on revenge. She makes plans to attack all of the gods with her assembled forces. The gods are terrified, and they need a leader to lead them against her army, and they turn to Marduk. Okay, so all the gods now are really afraid of Tiamat because they know that she wants to kill them, and now she's really angry because they killed her beloved Apsu. So they choose this general god, if you will, god of war, Marduk. By the way, when we talk about some other books, who is the good guy in the book of Esther? Mordechai. And Mordechai is named after Marduk because this god has been quite popular later on. So Marduk agreed to lead them in battle against Tiamat and her assembled forces. Their forces are under the generalship of Kingu. And he agrees to lead them against Tiamat and Kingu on condition that he will be granted sovereignty, and he set the terms. So now we have Marduk versus against Kingu. His heart exalting, he said to his father, creator of the gods, destiny of the great gods, if I indeed, as your avenger, am to vanquish Tiamat and save your lives, set up the assembly, proclaim supreme my destiny. Let my word instead of you determine the fates. Unalterable shall be what I may bring into being, neither recalled nor change shall be the command of my lips. So Marduk wants to be the supreme god. And the agreement is struck, and Marduk fells Tiamat in battle. In fury, Tiamat cries out aloud to the roots, her legs shook both together. Then joined issues Tiamat and Marduk. They strove in single combat, locked in battle. The Lord Marduk spread out his net to enfold her. The evil wind, which followed behind, he let loose in her face. When Tiamat opened her mouth to consume him, it drove in the evil wind that she closed not her lips. As the fierce winds charged her belly, her body was distended and her mouth was wide open. He released the arrow, it tore her belly, it cut through her inside, splitting her heart. Having thus subdued her, he extinguished her life. He cast down her carcass to stand upon it. Marduk killed Tiamat.
Right.
But it's leading somewhere important. I'm not just doing it because what do you do with the carcass of a ferocious monster? You build a world. Okay, remember, from the carcass of Tiamat, Marduk is going to build the world. He takes the carcass, he slices it into two halves, rather like a clamshell, and out of the top half, he creates the firmament, the heaven. With the other half, he creates the land, the earth. I need to explain how it works, and you want to understand it because this is exactly the description in our Torah, in the Bible, of how God created the world. But the world in the beginning was all water. The act of creation of the world was separation of two sources of water. So what God did, or in this story, what Marduk did, think about a clam or think about an oyster, okay? So what Marduk did was to take one part of the oyster, right, and push it up with all the water, okay? So we took all part of the water from the world, from this chaotic existence, and push it up. And this clam, this shell, this wall that he created, okay, or that's the sky, the firmament, prevented the water from coming down. And then the bottom part of the shell of the oyster became the solid ground. Now, part of it remain wet, and that's why we have the oceans, the seas, the rivers, etc. But part of it remain dry land. Do you understand how it works? So the whole idea of a firmament, if you want, the same word that appears in our Bible, is taking this clam and pushing water up. And then we push water down with the other side, and we have the world. The separation, as we'll see next week, of between water and water, water on high and water on the bottom. And from the water of the bottom, we created some dry land. Let me just continue a little bit because it's really nice here. He split her like shellfish into two parts. Half of her he set up and sealed it as sky, okay, to prevent this water from coming down, pulled down the bar and posted guards. He bade them to allow not her waters to escape. That's why we are safe. That is the created world. But it doesn't stop just by creating the world. He creates various heavenly bodies at that point, right? Like the sun, the moon, the stars. He constructed stations for the great gods. The heavenly bodies were understood as station for the great gods, because now we have a lot of gods and they need something. Fixing their stroll likeness as constellations. He determined the year by designating their zones. He set up 3 constellations for each of the 12 months, which explains to us how we ended up having seasons. The moon he caused to shine the night to him and trusting. But then something happened. Complaints began to roll in. The gods are very unhappy because they have now been assigned specific duties in the maintenance of the cosmos. They pretty unhappy about this, and they want relief from working and laboring at their assigned stations. And so Marduk accedes to these demands. He takes the blood from the slain general Kingu, the leader of Tiamat's army, the rebels, and he fashioned a human being with the express purpose of freeing the gods from their labor. Blood that will mass and cause bones to be. I will establish a savage man, Adam in Hebrew, we'll see, shall be his name. Verily, savage man I will create. He shall be charged with the service of the gods that they might be at ease. It was Kingu who contrived the uprising and made Tiamat rebel and join battle. So they bound him, holding him before Ea, and out of Kingu's body they fashioned mankind, and Ea imposed the service and let free of the gods.
Here's where he's creating.
So he used the blood of the general of Tiamat, of Kingu, to create human beings. But why did he create human beings? What was their goal?
To do the
Relieve
work
God.
that he didn't want to do.
Yeah, to be slaves. Let me just stop. To be slaves, to do the work that the other gods did not want to do.
Like I said,
Okay, so this is one of the many stories that we have, the creation stories. And what we are going to do next week would be to start looking at our Bible. And when we compare the story of our Bible with that story, for example, we will start to understand what ancient Israel was, and in many ways, what we, the Jewish people today, became. So I think I will end here. Thank you for joining me, and I will try to, if you cannot do it, I will try to do it. How am I going to? So you said that you cannot see in the chat box
we saw it.
Oh, you saw it. So if you
We
want
did,
to.
yeah.
Okay, so we are good with that. Okay, so I will see you next week.
Thank
All
you
right.
very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Very
Good night.
interesting.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye.